That's easy. I checked that plug. There it goes. There we go. Alright, thank you. Alright. There you are. Well, you can tell it's live. And this. Alright. Yeah, the propane is fully open. There we go. Nope, I've turned it off. Add a little less oxygen to the mix. And I need to put my glasses on. You just mean the audio? Yeah, no, it's very loud if you don't have the right microphone. The right microphone and the right noise suppression in place. So, doing the same thing I did the other day. Just making another Vortex marble. Keep it simple. So that's what Tessa said. You can tell it's live. I didn't know that that's what she said, but man, that's how it goes sometimes. There we are. There we go. All right. First and foremost here, we're just gonna melt some clear. This is gonna be the inside of the Vortex. Today I am doing a red and black swirl. I'm gonna back it with this kind of a transparent, or rather translucent white. I'm gonna sit back up on my seat a little bit more here. Get a little comfy. For this, it's gonna take a good hour. And then this dark blue is still going to be my backing color. I just like it. I'm also making a gift, so trying to go through how I melt. I mean, alright, well, you can tell that when I looked that way, my rod moved. But really, I just tried to melt. Let's see, we'll use this piece here. I try to concentrate the flame here. So kind of at the back end of the gather, so that the heat itself is kind of letting gravity make it into the kind of sphere shape that it's going to be, and I don't have to think about it too much. It also means that the rod itself is never going to be terribly cold, because it's always getting some ambient heat from the flame. My experience is that the rod itself is where I get little pieces that like pop off on me. So, and I don't know if this is gonna come through on the camera, but I see a little bit of scuzz on my glass, probably just because it was dirty. You get to now see how I switch hands, which is just around the mic. I am just gonna heat this up so I can see where that scuzz is again. I'm just gonna pull it off. I don't know that I necessarily need to do this, but I know that in the final product, that if I can see that little bit of white right there, it's gonna really bug me. So, and now it's nice and clear. Now I just kind of want to heat this whole thing up. The other thing is that anywhere that scuzzes is kind of where bubbles like to form. So if you can get rid of it early, it just becomes less of a headache later. Alright. So that one was nice and liquid when I put it in there, so it was really easy to get a nice even press. And here I'm just going to alternate between the red and the black. As much as I can. There may be one in this, like, again, I'm not paying close enough attention to know if this is even or odd. Just making it up. I like to just heat up the very tip of whatever color I'm working with. I'm gonna stick it where I want, bring it back into the flame, kind of just pull it down. Good enough. And I'm gonna assume that I've got an even number and I can do an every other until I get proven wrong. There we are. Skip one. Oh, cool, this one is even. Lucky. Now. That to touch. And I want this to touch. Excuse you. Alright. There we go. Oh, maybe it's not even. Did I mess this one up? Hard to tell. I might have two of the blacks too close. Like these two I think are too close, but whatever. When you do the swirl, it's not going to show up that much. All I'm trying to do here is just sort of heat this rod up. How do I want this? Definitely want it here. And just nice long pull. Excuse you, I'd like you to touch, especially since black and red are both going to look black. They're going to be relatively hard to tell apart. Can't quite, because red turns black. Can't quite tell. I'm just going to go ahead and slide one here because I think I'm making it up, but that's okay. Now I grabbed the clear, but I grabbed it out of habit. What I actually want to do is use a little bit of this spooky color. Because I'm a little bit, so I've used the black before against the lapis blue as a backing, and you just can't quite see the difference on the inside of the marble. It's already a little bit darker in there. And so I wanted to give it a little bit more of a contrast by putting that kind of smoky white color behind it. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to keep everything separated. It may very well end up being just one. And by one, I just mean that this smoky white color is going to become sort of a backing on the inside, and then the outside will have a different color. Go ahead and turn this one down a little bit. I can tell that I've already cracked this glass a little. I don't know if that comes up on the camera. Yeah, it does. But that's okay. It can totally still be used. I just don't want it popping off on me. So I'm just going to lay this on top of each of the colors. If only because the red could probably use the backing color too. And I don't know that I can tell the difference between the black and the red. We'll see how this comes out. This is kind of a bit of an experiment. Just having a few more layers of color here. All right. The smoky color does not like getting too hot, apparently. So I'm just going to turn it down. I'm just going to take it a little bit slower. It moves for me pretty well, so not too bad. And so, Bernard, since I know we were talking a little bit about avoiding bubbling, that's kind of why I turned down my flame just now. And one of the other things that I like to do, so like anytime you've got that like little bit of a pole, or anywhere where even on your main piece that there's different thicknesses, you want to keep the thinner pieces in the flame for less time. So I kind of just stick it in and then I let it come out and kind of ball back up, and then you can stick it in longer. Because I really don't want the flame concentrating on any thin pieces of one color, especially a color I know boils. Do I make it look easy? I don't know about that. I'm definitely a little bit afraid of what I've done here, which is probably trap a bunch of air. Or rather, I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep the different lines separated because they're so close. I want to add more clear between them, but if I did so now, I'm pretty sure I would trap air because there's just so many ridges going on. So I'm just going to take it slow right now and just let the heat kind of do its job and even out some of these ridges that I have. And all I want to do is get things glowing. When they start to glow, I can move on. That's kind of how I do it. And I'm really not happy with the way that the tip looks right now. It's kind of like those clear, or the white color doesn't really come all the way to the end. I'll probably do it now, to be honest. Try to pull them where we do get these coming all the way to the top. Just want those to move. There's one more here. And just take it nice and slow. I say that as I immediately reach to turn up the flame. There we go. The more that it melts in, the kind of higher heat it can take. The thicker the piece is, the more the heat gets distributed. The less likely you are to bubble any part of it. And just sort of keep spinning. And here I'm even going to kind of slow it down a little bit so the heat can concentrate in. I really am trying to get rid of these ridges. I want it to melt a little bit. Okay. Like, I really just want to pull that end off, but it's not going to do me any good until I actually put the swirls through the whole thing. So, we might as well wait here. We're getting closer. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Let's see. Here's my clear rod. And I always, when I'm heating up a rod, I stick it at this kind of angle where it's downwards. It's away from me. If it's gonna shatter on me, especially this one, it's already got cracks in it. If it's gonna break, it's gonna break away from me. I also try to always keep my piece rotating in the background, back of the flame. I want this to be able to stay warm. It doesn't need to take all of the heat right now. I don't know what the best way to do this is, but I feel like if I start at the tip and I come down, that I have a better chance of getting the clear into the cracks versus if I started at the top, or if I started at the fat part of this teardrop or whatever it is. I feel like I would trap air. So just slide this down. I'm gonna flame cut that. Please release. And really all I'm trying to do here is preserve that there's different layers. I don't want all of my different lines touching in the end. That's why right now I'm just kind of going between each of the lines. And if I don't get them all, it's not that big of a deal. But some amount of vortex needs to be preserved. I'm also not terribly worried. Like, I am actually, I think I got like a tiny bit of a different color on this. Not super worried about that. Just try and... I'm going to go ahead and rotate this a little bit more. You can see how often now that I check the comments. Gotta turn my head that way. That one went pretty well. So maybe that's the key, is kind of heat up both. Let's see. Now I'm just kind of looking for any low areas. So like I see one here. This one. Forbidden Hershey Kiss. I mean, you know, it kind of does. One of the like holiday ones where they've got like extra stripes on them. I feel like those don't have any extra flavor. They're just striped. Maybe they do. I don't know. Alright, now that I feel like we're all on the same level. One second. Alright, for your draws, am I melting a specific amount on the rod to place it on the piece? I mean, it's kind of by feel. Ideally, it's not like specific. I probably do have like an amount that like I know is going to cover. Like right now I can tell you that it's about that one stripe, and I know I can get from base to tip. But I'm also not terribly worried that if I come up short that it's going to be a problem. I just want enough to be able to start it. Oh no. Oh no. Alright. You are a brat. Stick down. Good enough. Because once I get started and get it started laying, the flame is going to be at the next part of the rod. So it will melt more of my rod onto the piece as I need it. I just need enough to kind of get started. That's really kind of the key here. Now I want Hershey Kisses. Although those are like impossible to come by here. I don't blame you. You have to take responsibility for this and get me Hershey Kisses. It is one of those weird things that was strangely hard to get a hold of. Alright. Let's see how I've done here. I don't know that I've covered this one very well. But we'll just start. And if I see something that starts to bother me, I will take care of it. Concentrating the flame right at the very top of this, or the base of this Forbidden Hershey Kiss. Because that's the thickest part. It's going to be the part that wants to move the least. So we got to make sure the heat gets all the way through it. And I can travel the heat up to the tip if I need to, but it's not going to go the other way so easy. And you can do this with basically any size flame. I have a really kind of tiny flame here. It just takes a little bit longer, a little bit more patience, and that's okay. And I can tell, like, right here at the top, I don't know how well this comes across on stream. Those little top bits right there, you see how they're all bright? Those are areas that are not encased. I can tell that when I put the flame on them, they've got like a different look. So I can tell also that it's ready to move, because as I lift it up, it's moving quite a lot. So I'm going to just take my two hands, I'm going to rotate them in opposite directions, just ever so slightly. And I'm doing this out of the flame so that I can see how much of a swirl I'm adding in. And if I need to put it back in the flame, I can. I feel like that's a good amount. Now, I'm going to take this bit. And we're just going to twist and pull. That's pretty good. I'll worry about taking this color off later. Future me problems. Alright. Right now it's just getting rid of the ridges. Because as I twist it, it kind of creates little humps on the outside. And we just want it to be nice and flat, nice cone shape. Back to that Forbidden Hershey Kiss. And I really wouldn't mind if it melted down a little bit too, because right now it's kind of tall. And marbles aren't known for being egg-shaped. So I kind of need it to get a little fatter. We gotta put a little bit more meat on these bones. Just gonna melt you in a little bit. And part of how I'm getting the glass to go kind of where I want it is one, where I put the flame, and two, how I hold the rod. Right now I'm holding it the heavy side down, and the glass is gonna move with gravity towards that. Towards my hand. Alright. Pretty happy with that. Just gonna kind of straighten that tip out a little bit. Alright. Now, see, future me is already like, well, see, I'm mad that I got all this extra glass on here. So, we're gonna break that off. We're gonna pretend I did that out of like, oh, I knew this was gonna happen, but really I just saw the break. I was just gonna melt it off and pull it off. But that just worked out. So. One of the other things that I'm doing to prevent boiling, I don't know if you see this, is I put it in and I pull it right back out. Because like I'm a little bit aware here that if I leave it in the flame, even though it can take heat, that it could just boil on me. Alright, I want to put a little bit of heat through this whole thing. Just for the sake of putting heat through it. So I'm going to do this until it glows. And all I'm trying to do right now is that very top edge where I noticed I hadn't done a very good job encasing. I want to fix that before I start putting on the backing layer and start adding a lot of heat directly to that exact spot. The middle of this gets quite a lot of flame. So you just want to make sure this gets covered, because it will become a problem. I'm just gonna keep this in the flame and rotate it around. There we go. Alright, I see a tiny little sliver that's still brighter than the rest. Fantastic. Alright. Now onto the backing color, where I'm not going to get in trouble. No trouble. So all I'm doing now is that clear that I just put on has a little bit, and sits a little bit higher than the rest of the glass. Just concentrating the heat on that. Just try to bring it back in. One of the other things, so like I said, I bring it in and out of the flame. So part of it is color. I know that when I'm working with this specific clear, which is I'm using actually two clears. So the rod itself in my hand is a Lauscha clear, and the other one is a Zephyr. I like them both, but I use them differently. So the Lauscha is stiffer. It means that it takes a little bit more pressure and a little bit more heat before it starts moving, whereas the Zephyr, it just melts right into itself. So the Lauscha makes a fantastic base. Alright, I want this to be a little hotter. Let's turn that up. Just a tiny bit. Lauscha makes a fantastic base because you don't want your design to move. So if it doesn't move, it's great. The Zephyr is good for covering other pieces because it flows so easily that you can just put a little bit on top, heat it up, and it's just going to flow and fill in all the cracks. So I kind of use them in conjunction. I always use Zephyr when I am finishing a piece because it takes less to melt that Zephyr into the final bit. Alright, I want to change my hand position a little bit here because I don't want the tip of this in the flame. And together. There we go. I don't remember what I was saying, but yeah. My fatter rods are the Lauscha, my thinner rods are the Zephyr. And what I want to do more than anything here is just concentrate the flame a little bit on the last row and mostly on the row that or the rod itself. And any time that you're encasing or adding glass, that's when you have a chance of adding bubbles. That's when you just want to be the carefulest with it. And so like right now, I've got this kind of ridge thing going on. I'm kind of just going to let it melt a little bit before I continue. And I'm not concerned. Like, see, these are all sorts of ridgy. They're not really flat. Not worried about it. That is not a concern of mine. And by ridgy, I mean the stuff that I'm laying down previously. The part that I am concerned about is the height differential between the two pieces that I'm putting on. Because I want there not to be air, so I need that to fill in. The tip of this marble is a little bit hot, so I'm just gonna put some heat into the base of it and give the tip a little bit of a chance to cool off. And then I will glob this one on. Right. Another thing that I do kind of instinctually is if I have that little tip is I put it away from the flame so it's getting only indirect heat and not directly on the flame. So it's on this rod, so when I pull it and there's a little bit of a tail that's stuck on it or something. Okay. There we go. Fantastic, that's covered. Now, just heat the thing back up and keep adding glass. Any tips on doing a continuous draw? Well, I feel like I had a lot of breaks in mine. But really, it's about concentrating the flame on the rod. I remember when I first started trying to do like these backing colors and stuff, I would have a hard time getting the rod to melt appropriately. And part of it is working too hot. And then just also having patience. Like, if you work too hot, you can boil the side closest to the flame, but the side on the other side's not getting hot. It takes time for the heat to kind of transfer through the rod. So I find that, I don't know if you saw, I think this is how I do it though, is I pull and then I stop, and then I let it melt, and then I pull and I stop. So really I'm just trying to let the rod in my hand, the heat get through the whole thing, and then I can feel like the tension and how much resistance there is to pull, and know that it's gonna go a certain distance before I have to fight with it again. So that's kind of my answer there. Right now, we're just getting rid of all the bumps that I've added. And I've got like a little bit of a ridge here. I don't know what happened there. I'm not worried about it. As long as from this rod to that tip it's straight, the rest of this needs to be filled in with blue anyway. It's just a little weird. Just wasn't paying too much attention. We'll see. I can't see on the inside. That's one of the things that frustrates me, is it's like, I can't tell. Did I drop a whole bunch of air and I'll find out later? Can't tell ya. Can't tell ya. All I can do is what I can do. I love this gradient that this gives, is it goes from this like just candy apple red to like a little bit of a purple right into this nice deep blue. I'm just gonna fill this hole in. And that's one thing that I like to do, is kind of spin my rod a little bit as I come off. I find that it breaks a little bit easier. I don't know if it's actually true, but it's what I do. Alright. Blobby McBlobbington is looking alright for right now. Let's see here, stopping. Even kind of concentrate the flame just right on that rod, and I can feel when it wants to move. You don't need to force it. If you're forcing it, it's not ready. And you're liable to smear things underneath it more than you are to get the glass to gather. And anywhere that you see it bright, that's where you can introduce boiling. So again, just kind of pass over those sections really quickly until it melts in. And as it melts in, it can take more and more heat. And that's another reason why you want to kind of melt your ridges in. It helps disperse the heat, and then the whole thing becomes even. And then you can turn up the heat. We can move this party along. So right now, I see all these little lines that kind of look cold compared to the bright red. So that's why I'm kind of concentrating my flame on that, to kind of even that out. And it's not that big of a deal now. It's not really what we're doing. But it will allow this next part where I turn up the flame to not become a problem. And just know that this clear can take a good amount of heat. So, trying to just start. So let me read Bernard's question. It says, tell me if I misunderstand, but is there a threshold where the cool glass will boil, but after it gets molten, there's less of a chance of it? Kind of. And I don't know if it's necessarily that it will, there's less of a chance of it boiling. It's more that any one spot isn't going to cross the threshold that will cause it to boil. So if everything that you're working with is hot, the heat can transport or transfer through the whole thing. And it really, like, you'll see the color. See here, I have a bigger flame, and I'm putting it right on this blue, and it's not turning that same pink color that the tiny little bit of blue did. The tiny little bit of blue got pinker because it got hotter faster. Just because there wasn't a lot of it there that was touching other glass that it could transfer through. That's my understanding of it. Now, I could be wrong. I am not a scientist. I am just a girl playing around with flames. That's it. So in essence, again, kind of. In that, if it's all nice and warm and all nice and even, it can take a hotter flame. Which is why I can turn this up with no fear. And I can run through my nice big lens. And right now, this thing looks like a mess. I understand that. It will become a marble where it can roll very nicely. But right now, we're just worried about gathering up the glass. I don't want my handle to become too cold. So we're gonna start pushing some flame through that. 1 second. Let me do this. So one thing that I could see that kind of was happening is that my blue was starting to get a little bit of a sheen to it. And I think I had too much propane, and I was reducing it a little bit. And so I've turned up the oxygen to get rid of that effect. Turning up the oxygen makes my flame a little bit more concentrated. This guy's a little bit more wobbly than the last one. I'm moving a little faster. It's okay. Alright. This is time for me to concentrate heat right in the middle. Try to get this guy to even out a little bit on me here. Yep, so really I'm just paying attention to the color. I don't want my blue to get too of the pink. So I bring it above the flame, and then I just kind of let gravity keep shaping that part of it, and then I just add it back into the flame, concentrating right on that ridge, because that ridge is where the thickest part of this marble needs to be. And I'm gonna kind of let this even itself out a tiny, tiny bit. Let's see, can I save this? How do I want to do this? I think that I'm gonna call that for the lens. It's also getting kind of short to hold. And you're just flame cutting it, and it takes a little minute, and you can kind of, there we go. At some point, it'll start moving on you, and you know it's good. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna flip this guy over, and there's my marble molds. And now, out of the two sides that I have here, the top lens, it being kind of a weird globby shape, that's fine. The lens can move in a lot of different ways, and it's not going to affect the final product. The bottom half is the side that I got to concentrate more on being straight. If there's too much of a curve in the vortex, you cut off the illusion really fast. So that's going to be kind of what I'm trying to base my up and down on and kind of correct some wrongs here. Right now, I'm just letting gravity do a good chunk of the shaping. Just starting a little bit big and kind of rotating it around. This one, I honestly don't know that it needs to do terribly much more than that. The first set of shaping is really just basic opening up the lens, and it did that. So all I want to do now is any cold tool marks that I may have introduced, I want to get those to go away. I'm going to turn the flame down a little bit here. I'm going to grab that one. And I am going to switch hands here. I'm going to put the punty on the very top of this lens. Boop. And now we're going to cut the bottom part of this off. I may add more blue. We'll see. See how I feel here in a minute. We need to shape the bottom half into a rough shape, and then we'll do final shaping on both sides. Alright, I personally don't need all this extra glass on the bottom here. There's already a vortex in there. I don't need... You're not going to be able to see that part. It's not doing us any good. So I'm trying to decide if I want to just use the flame and let it droop down, which is probably the safer method. If I use the marble mold to kind of squish it, I risk distorting the vortex on the inside a little bit more. Whereas this is a little safer, because I can kind of see where the glass is going to move. We're just trying to make it a little less cone-shaped. Just a little less. And this is where having a lot of patience comes into play. This orange color is totally safe. It's when it starts getting much brighter than this. Alright. That. I'm gonna go into the mold now. And we're just gonna let gravity play a role in this. I'm not really doing anything. If I push too hard, I'm just gonna distort it more. All I am doing. So when you're doing the actual mold making part of this, you want to choose one that's actually smaller. And whatever orientation that you set it into the mold, doesn't really matter. You want to try to keep it as steady as you can as you rotate it around. Because a marble needs to be round in all directions. But we're going to start with one, so I've kind of chosen like a 45-ish degree angle, at least that's what I think it is. And I'm going to try to keep that. I lied, I'm going to go ahead and go down to like a full 90 degrees. It's easier on my arm. I can change my mind. And all I'm trying to do, I don't know if you guys can see this, but like there's little marks on the very bottom here. That's where the mold is slightly, it's the higher parts, and it's touching, and it's moving the glass out of the way. So really though, I'm not pushing, I'm just rotating, and gravity's doing all of the pushing. All of these cold marks need to get hot enough that they melt back in. But I don't have to concentrate the flame directly on them until they're gone. It's kind of touch them and then move away and then bring the flame back. So I can tell that it's kind of one color again. Really what I'm looking for here is for an ease of my rotation. If I can feel a high level of resistance, then I know that this isn't round. Once it gets really easy to kind of move it, it's getting closer and closer to being round. So one thing that I think is happening here is I think my rod's not parallel. So I'm going to move the flame on the rod. There we go. Let's see. Alright. Getting happier with that. So, the next part of this is going to be, instead of choosing one orientation in my 90 degrees, I am going to choose all of the orientations. So I'm going to start at the top, I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to keep rotating it as I bring it down. Alright, that went really well actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and I will do it once more on... Interesting. On a smaller mold yet, or a smaller ring. The smaller the ring, the more precision it is at being round. Last couple of steps. Now, I'm going to turn the flame down a little bit. Okay. What I want to do here, I want to put this rod on the back. And I want to take the clear off of the top. We're going to melt that in. We're going to do a little bit of shaping on that side. Just a very, very little amount of shaping. Okay. Trying to make it a really small contact point. And then we're going to take this last bit off and melt it in. We'll take it off with the marble grabbers. But we're getting pretty close. I'm going to go ahead, pull this off. Okay. And here's where you can see, I don't know if you guys can actually see, but it started to turn bright yellowish, pinkish color on me, that clear that I just put on. And I don't want it to boil, so I'm concentrating the flame lower, and I'm just going to let gravity and the clear underneath it transfer the heat to get it to come into alignment with everything else. Now it's not perfect, there's still like a little bit of a dot, but now if I put the flame on it, it's not glowing like it used to. All we're gonna do, stick that in there. And kind of push that little bit of clear back in. And now I'm sure that I have cold mark tools. They're going to look like little waves. I just want to heat that through. I'm going to do the same to the back here. Mostly I just don't want the back getting too cold. So I just want the back to kind of glow red. Yep, alright, that looks good. Everything's looking good. Let it cool down for a few seconds. Alright, that's pretty round. I'm not seeing any obvious cold marks from that. Alright, it's basically done now. Last step. It's going to be grabbing it with the marble grabbers and then melting in the last little point. Snap off that tiny little bit that we had. And here we just kind of, again, be very careful. And in fact, I could turn the flame down even more. Just try to heat up the base and not the actual point that you're trying to melt in, but like everything around it. So that this can sort of melt back in to the sphere. You want everything to get about the same color. Once it's at the same color, which we're getting close. I'm gonna turn up the flame now. Last little bit is just gravity doing its job. And I call that one done. So I don't know how much of this is going to come through on the... bad ideas. Yep, bad ideas. Come back here. There we go. Still can't see into it. It's dark. I tried. Gonna put that away before I, drop a still very, very hot marble anywhere near me. So, gonna have to call it for tonight. I have a job in the morning. So, thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye! That's okay. Alright, that's off. That's off. That one's done. No, I did. I reduced it. Where to drink this? You're off. Are you off? You are. You are not off. Stop recording. Cool. Let's me grab my drink. Whatever.